in the room.
Yeah, it should be, hopefully. I didn't get a ding, but
I
it
heard
looks...
it.
Did you hear it? I didn't hear it, mate. I didn't hear any ding. So hopefully it should be live now. I'll type it in the chat just in case if people need to refresh
Top
their
right,
page.
top right, it says live, mate.
Yeah, I like to do it just to be sure anyway. Hang on, refresh my page because it's not feeding properly on my YouTube page yet.
We're all good.
Whee! Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and I can see the chat as well. I will go through that in a minute. I'm being really unprofessional here, aren't I? Just talking, gibbering away while, supposed to be starting this broadcast. Hello, folks. This is I've named it the Almost Reality Chat, just simply as a play on language like I like to, partly as a homage to Peter, who's still nursing his broken shoulder. So please send him good energy. He's being looked after at the moment, and he said he might join us if he feels well enough and up for it, but if not, get well soon, mate. Rest and relax and heal your shoulder up first. That's the main thing. So I called it Almost Reality Chat to say it's not on the usual channel. It's not on Peter's channel. He usually titles it Reality Chat. I used to host these regular every Wednesday up until I got well, in total it was 3 strikes, but the way it's staggered, it didn't actually shut my channel down, but it restricted me severely. I wasn't allowed to do live streams and other stuff, the naughty step on the Google beast. So yeah, I haven't been doing it for the last year, but hopefully as long as there's no other messing about going on with my channel, I will host Hangouts more often again. So for now, it's the Almost Reality Chat, and in a way I wanted to sort of touch on those kind of aspects because of the way this medium is very often used to spread lies, fear, misinformation, distraction, basically crafting a false reality or a misconceived or misdirected perception of reality around you. Yeah, is it reality? No, it's almost reality because it's coming at you through a screen. It is being photo manipulated into a holographic version.
Probably the best reality in the world.
Yeah. The best, yeah. Okay, I like it. And big thanks to you, Kip, for helping me set this up again, because since the changes on YouTube, because it's been about a year since I've done this stuff, and the few bits of changes they've made to the system meant I was sort of looking at it going, how do I do this again?
A nightmare.
So Kip helped me a lot with sorting that out. Yes. Hello to everybody in the chat room. I know there's quite a few people in there. I saw quite a few people posting little messages to the invite saying, sorry, can't make it tonight because I'm working or stuff like that. Yeah, that's great, but yeah, that's the whole point of this stuff, isn't it? You're not committed to come and watch this. If you've got other stuff to do, go and do it. But thank you all for those people that are in there now. See loads of names. Rebecca, Binary Ghost, Bright77, Actional Reactional, Safety Man, hello, and make it scroll. Truth Seeker, Colliman, Daniel of Doria, King9, right, mate, Rebecca, and there's loads of names in there tonight. I'll keep scrolling up, see if we get to more of them. Crypto Klaus, Safety Man, yeah. I haven't missed anyone. I'm sure I saw James in there earlier.
James was in earlier.
Yeah. CK, Mark. Hello, Mark. I hope you're doing all right. I know it's early morning for you down there in Kiwi land at the moment. And want to be live, want to be 24 live. The Globalist, Stewie. And that's where my chat box fades out thanks to the Google beast restrictions. But hello to everybody in the chat room. Thank you for showing up. There's a few topics we can talk about tonight, but being me, it will sort of generalise and ramble a fair bit. There's some rather more wide-ranging topics and concepts I want to throw about tonight, so we'll see how it goes. But I think maybe a good place to start it was the little clip you put up earlier, Kip, about Keith Vaz on the BBC. When I saw you clip up, Keith Vaz, why are they dragging Keith Vaz out again? And then it twigged in my mind. It's like, well, they're running out of scapegoats. They're running out of mouthpieces who will stand in front of the public and tell blatant bullshit lies to them. But Keith Vaz is good at that. He's well known for it. You know? He was referred to as the scandal magnet because the amount of things that he's been connected to, allegedly. So what were the BBC doing with that one, dragging him out on?
I was thinking about a word link there that had never occurred to me before, but like, see, when I say Vinnie Paz to you, like, you're being conspiratorial, you're probably aware of some of his songs. When I hear Keith Vaz, I was thinking Vinnie Paz. But aye, man, it was funny. It's just more of this. It's like there's been this big, and this is what it's. I'm becoming more and more a fan of watching mainstream media, because like, the more you see through it, it's great because you can actually get the steps ahead of them. It's been building up this brown people in boats, and then they drop him in it, and the next meme is, we need to go to Africa and Greece with our police. You're like, what?
Did the interviewer not ask him about his connections to that passport affair? Where he basically helps, I think it was one of his relatives or some other big mover and shaker get a passport faster than he should have been able to. And stuff like that. I'm vaguely remembering details because it was a few years ago now. But
it's hard to keep up with the corruption. It really is, though. It's like that guy's no too bad. He only speeded up somebody's passport. At least he wasn't snorting cocaine off of hookers.
I just wanted to put in a big up for Michael Palin. Is my volume down?
It's very low.
Yeah, it is, mate. It's really low.
Other way.
Yeah, that's
better. Yeah.
That was better. Yeah, I wanted to put a big up for Michael Palin coming out and blowing the whistle on the BBC. They made a video where all these celebrities were saying, "Save the BBC," and Michael Palin put his hand up and said, "No, they fixed it. That wasn't me. I didn't do that." Yeah. Did you see that story?
I've missed that.
No, I didn't see that.
I'm gonna have a look for it. Yeah.
That's cool. I was talking about that just the other night and I know, yeah, you got to take the context of the fact that these guys, the Monty Python guys, all come from a university background where, you know, they were rubbing shoulders in the establishment, all that kind of stuff. Yes, but over the many years that I've watched their work, what they put out there, they hand out so many fantastic bits of information and knowledge that is hidden in plain sight because they can use the excuse of, oh, well, it's comedy. You know, we're just saying this to be satirical, to give people a bit of a laugh. You know, it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it's plausible deniability for them to talk about some very hard truths for people to swallow. And in their work over the years, they've presented loads of stuff, which, yeah, if you bother to look for it, or you realise that it's there, yeah, some amazing stuff. But
okay, one of the ones that rings to my, it's not the 10 o'clock news or something along those lines, and they done a sketch, and it was literally Rolf's Cartoon Club, and Rolf Harris was out with a big net catching children. Now, obviously, at the time, the joke was that they weren't insinuating he was a paedophile, just that he used to go and capture kids to fill up his art studio. But when you watch that back, that is out and out sinister. Those people, again, when you take it into the context and now knowing the backstory, there's no way that is accidental. Those are people knew out in the open, and that was Ron Atkinson and all his kind of wee clique. I think it was not the 10 o'clock news or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was. I remember the clip you're referring to because it did get shared around again on the tubes not that long ago when all this kind of information started coming out again. And again, hidden in plain sight. If you're unaware of what is really going on, you know, it might just seem that they're making comedy or something like that, whereas really there's some people were obviously trying to get the information out there or get the point across, you know, just trying to disguise it with using comedy so that they would not get stifled or shut down.
Well, Michael Palin, he works for the BBC, doesn't he? Like, he's like a fucking...
I don't know if he's still contracted with them, but he certainly does still go back to do work for them, yeah. But it might be on an individual contract basis now rather than him being like signed up to the BBC. I don't know.
I can picture him of what he looks like and stuff. I can't remember if he was like he's not. It was weather or something he was into, wasn't it? Something along those lines.
He's into various stuff, natural world stuff, yeah, definitely. You know, Animal Kingdom stuff, a little bit like the Attenborough brothers, the Eugenesis brothers. This is what I mean. You have to take the context of the fact that these guys have been through the higher educational system. Yeah, before they started doing their Monty Python stuff, this is like going back to what, the 60s and the 70s, they were all university educated. Yeah, that means they've performed for the establishment. They've jumped through the hoops required of them by the establishment. I'm not saying that that means they're agents or any of that kind of paranoid stuff, but you carry the baggage with you, you know, from these kind of institutions. Even if some... Go on, Gary.
I've looked at some of their stuff in retrospect, and you know the angles with the law, Masons, government, a lot of the things like that. They come across differently. Now I know the things I know, and they knew about them at the time. Yeah, that's the baggage they pick up from being in that aristocratic education. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, right. And it's a good reference in respect to the title of this hangout, Almost Reality. You know, whether they knew it or not at the time, they were being pushed through an educational system that was attempting to colour their perception of reality to give you that, you know, the establishment's version of reality, and how much they carried along with them as baggage and then passed on to it. We all do it, yeah. We all do it, unfortunately, at some point. Maybe I shouldn't generalise in that kind of grander scale, saying we all do it, but you know, the vast majority of us do it.
Cookie, see when you're talking about that kind of like when you see people getting spat out the system, and well, then these institutions is a better way of saying it. These high up institutions, and then they end up in prominent parts. I mean, like you were talking about the Monty Python folks there, then Palin, and then we're talking about the BBC clique. Now, what jumps into my head right now is that Jeremy Coburn and his brother. I know Peter was talking about his brother, and I keep meaning to look it up.
Piers Corbyn.
Can you remember what Peter told us about him?
Yeah, I've followed him as well, mate, for a few years because he was willing and able to stand up and speak out against the global warming bullshit. So I kept an eye on what he was doing over the past few years, and he's sort of just ticked along doing his thing, but he has been one of those of the heretical scientists, climatologists out there who said all the stuff to do with global warming and whatever is crap. Yeah.
The George Galloway of the climate world.
Yes.
There's all the stuff, but pretty much in the club.
Nearly every year, he's placed a bet with one particular, you know, big name betting institution. I won't say the name to give him advertising, but every year he's placed a bet with them about certain things to do with the weather, like whether it will roughly what time it will snow and how much precipitation there'll be, you know, those kind of things. And nearly every year, year in, year out, he's won his bet. And he's used that as almost like a dossier of evidence to back up his theories and hypotheses about what is happening with the weather, to counteract the bullshit about the global warming agenda and stuff like that.
See, I know, I'm trying to get my sugar rush in here as well. I know in the past you've spoke about people being steam valves, so the same that they say the right stuff and they will take people to a certain level. Now, people have seen me on years on the, not so much on the fence of George Galloway. I can't deny his flaws, but I love, he's definitely builded my knowledge base. But right now what I see is a lot of people now, I've done a video there talking about, and we're going to build on this on Friday, but I've done a video about Chunky Mark appearing, very much showing his colours, a brand showing his colours by, again, encouraging people into the voting booth. So what they do is they have all this brilliant rhetoric, they mobilise everybody, yeah, motherfucker, yeah! And then they go, aye, Labour's over there, put your X in that box. And people can't even, now it's happened right in front of their face, people can't even admit it because they've been scammed. And I'm still bad for hating them from the start, for the get-go.
This could be a reaction to something that I saw with Tom Crawford's case as well. That if we stand back, we see that what is coming is the European super state. Now, in the case of Tom Crawford, with the small magistrates courts and the local county court, Tom Crawford went to the Queen's Bench in London and got a writ demanding that they produce the paperwork. That's why they jumped up on top of the house roof. Yeah, and I'm thinking that even the judges are beginning to see this European super state might be coming, and they're scared for their jobs. So they're going to think, well, we better start doing it properly. And Chunky could be a part of that. He doesn't want a better world. He wants to take us back to the old Labour.
Yeah, 1970s Labour.
But I think
it's too late to go back there. You know, we've got to find a new way.
See, Gary, I agree with you, mate. But I think because again, let's not try and paint this guy out to be a demon or like somebody that should go and get beat up. This guy's got a political leaning. He's been brainwashed by a political slant, and he's doing what he can and as he can to suck in the disillusioned and point them towards Labour. Now, and I don't even think he hides it that well. He's pretty upfront about it. Now, I disagree with his politics, so I agree with you, mate. Like, you're spot on, but I don't think we should paint this guy as some big Illuminati, fat, hairy spider, because when you look back on it, look at the retardedness about him going back when he done a funny handshake with Luke Rudowski and stuff. That detracted if the actual people were trying to look at this guy and get to the real, and now he's decloaked and came out in full support of this Coburn. I mean, the guy's a party activist, an open activist for Coburn.
Yeah, but I think it's like it's just a different way of reacting to what they see as the European superstate that's coming. They think they can go back to the old system, get independence, but the corporations aren't going to let that happen.
I think that I would say that there's more likely to be a kind of double bluff going on with that, because he's been constantly trying to steer people back to that left-leaning point of view, primarily Labour, whatever. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not so much the particular party, as in Labour Party, it's more to do with political ideologies. And he's always struck me as being very much a socialist. That's his main cause that he shouts for, his principles that match with socialism. So in that respect, that's not a matter of getting people to vote for Labour like in the style of the old 1970s Britain with the Labour ruling councils and government and whatever. No, it's more to do with tying you into that socialist EU superstructure. Because the EU, the UN, it most definitely is socialistic. Yeah, you might as well say communistic, or you might as well say collectivistic. But really, even all those labels pale to really describe what it is, because when it comes down to it, it's just authoritarian control, which often described as fascism, or fascism basically is that. You know, whichever direction you go on that political left-right paradigm, eventually they circle round to meet the same point. It's not really a left-right paradigm. It's polarized extremes again, of you either have absolute liberty, you know, which for many people would be anarchism or something similar, or you have absolute authoritarian control. And whether you call it right-wing fascism, extreme conservatism, or collectivism, it basically equals the same thing. It's the governmental structure having so much authoritarian control over everything to do with your life. Yeah, that to me is fascism. You know, the way I learned about it, the easiest way to describe it is fascism, but it's basically the same thing. And what they're getting, what they're leading into, I think, is that to paraphrase George Carlin, the smiley-faced fascism, where we're only doing this to help you, sir, taser, taser, taser. You know, we're only doing this to re-educate you, sir, taser, taser, taser. You know, it's smiley-faced fascism. It's extreme, whistling, sorry, without my teeth. It's extreme authoritarianism, disguised by the deniability of we're doing it for higher principles. Yeah, it's an ideological structure that is being set up in such a way that it is dehumanized. This is why they push so much towards everything being computerized and using algorithms to deal with a lot of this stuff, and eventually AI, you know, maybe not what they call true AI or hard AI, but some form of a logarithmic system that will do all these decisions for you. And it will literally be a case of, as we've seen in this country, disabled people who need financial help to live, and the computer says no. Because the computer has no empathy, it has no compassion, it has no emotion. So the computer bases all its decisions on that corporate business efficiency model of, you know, where does the profit come out? You know, what is the most cost efficient way of dealing with this? The best way to deal with it is just say no. Yeah, let them die off, clear off the dead wood, as a fascistic kind of ideology treats it. Sorry, mate, I ranted a lot on that point, but I do think for all the years now that I've watched him, and I've tried to say this to people in so many different ways, I'm not looking at what Chunky does because I think he's so wonderful and I want to, you know, put fawn at his feet and think that he's this fantastic leader of people and shit. No, he's an artist who has socialistic leanings. His chosen way of approaching things is from that kind of socialistic ideology, and he uses what he puts out, his art form, to push people in that direction, or to, you know, wave a flag in that direction and say to them, go and vote for Labour, go and vote. Yeah, if you can't have the discernment in and of yourself to be able to see that for yourself and decide for yourself whether you agree or disagree or follow or what, I'm not going to tell you what to think about it. Yeah, but he talks about so much good information, I feel, that is relevant to us here in the UK, that to me is worth sharing. Yeah? I'm not telling people to follow him or agree with where he's pushing people. No, not at all. But the sharing of information is what's important to me.
And remember, right, this is what I think, to simplify it, all isms are the same, and they're all Orwellian. Every ism that you've been fed, and with a reasonable, anybody with reasonable debating skills could rock up and tear the fucking whole premise of it apart like that, because they're all just bull crap fed to a populace to accept fucking people at the top of them telling them what to do. Now, when you get people at the top of them that fucking successfully feed the population bull crap, and every ism, what happens is it's like a pyramid. They start centralising it all, and ultimately shit floats, man, and fucking they rise to the top. And that's why you need to accept all isms and all people that want to go around. Oh, this ism ain't good. Let's try this ism. Oh, look, this ism's great at the beginning. Oh, social paradise, capitalist paradise, and it's a back and forward, and you stick in the ism, and it's revolution after revolution, rather than going smash the isms and fucking come to a think outside the box shit. And what's the question I want to get answered right with the fucking my box, your box, our election is what happens when more people come to our election than theirs? What happens when we go, well, do you police by consent or do you not? What do they say? Yes, well, you know what I mean? They're going to literally, well, right enough, they're probably just going to send in people with truncheons to club us over the head. But it will have the, like, the police, the penny will drop for people. Like, the people, the citizens on the other side will go, hold on, these people were right. Look, they're standing there with a box and people, they're getting clubbed over the head. You know what I mean? Look at the way Gandhi done it and all that, man, just standing there going, what the fuck? And even like other protesters, the Chinese and shit, and other ones, famous ones. But so again, I'm not fucking saying fucking violence and stuff, but just do something like stand there with a box, going, I'm voting in my own election, and see if that can bring them to club you over the head. And if you're standing there with a box, calling it a real election, I mean, and well, listen, the last time I stood there with a box, the police came up to me and stopped me from calling it a real election. If that doesn't tell you something, there's something no right about this world. I don't know.
It is exactly. I mean, yeah. Again, calling it almost reality. It is part of that creating a narrative, crafting a reality, and then persuading your populace that the reality you're telling them is the right one. Yeah, and they do that a lot. And I think it is obviously extremely unfortunate, but it is a truism that the best way to get an oppressive authoritarian structure to reveal itself is to stand there and let it kill you. Yeah, that was why Gandhi pushed the point of non-violence, because it's like, yeah, we're going to get hurt, we're going to get beat down, some of us might even be killed by it, but in that process, everybody else that sees this will be able to clearly see with no deception how this authority structure works. It works by the use of force. That's it. They can disguise it under whatever ism name they want to use, but when it comes down to it, it's they hit you with a big stick to make you do what they demand. That's it.
And remember, there's no ism in orgasm.
Well, they've even got an ism, right, for what you was talking about, you know, considering everything in the whole, you know, in the round, as it were, and that's called monism. M-O-N-I-S-M, monism. In other words, everything is all one. And they pushed this meme around a few years ago for a while.
Monoism.
I think they were trying to vacuum up a lot of the people who were sort of pushing the boundaries of the boxes and fences and whatever, and going, oh, well, you know, even if you escape this box, we've still got you in an ism.
It's dangerous thinking outside the box. It really is, man. And if people analyse why you think they killed John Lennon, it's because that guy was going, just sit in a room, draw love on the wall, and fucking get high and shag your missus.
Yeah.
Just sit around and say peace, not the war.
Stop participating. That's the main thing. And it's not, again, that they attempted to co-opt that principle and turned it into the Timothy Leary turn on, tune in, drop out kind of thing, where they pushed it towards hedonism. And it was all about hedonistic attitudes, narcissism, solipsism, all that kind of shit, which put people into a perpetual spiral, a tailspin of trying to give themselves a blowjob, basically, you know, convincing themselves that nothing else mattered except themselves and their own pleasures. But the principle of non-participation is the same as going on a general strike. It's the same as like Gandhi did with holding the non-violent protests, where all they do is stand there. We had a similar thing in I think it was in Greece when the Greece situation first started getting bad a few years ago, and a lot of the locals, a lot of the communities had just come and stand in silence. Yeah, they wouldn't protest, they wouldn't wave banners, they wouldn't, try and create some kind of violence or destruction. They'd just stand in silence, in solidarity. And the system hates that. It hates it because it proves that there are community links of people caring about each other and their own society, their own local area, their community. Or it proves it. And the establishment hates that because it's a self-realization of empowerment.
Listen to the beauty is, see what you're talking about there? Listen to the beauty of holding your own election, having your own box, voting for yourself, just raising awareness, just getting people to withdraw their consent. Nobody's voting for any individual or any party, you're just withdrawing your consent. The beauty about that is you can do it at every election, you can do it in every country, you can do it at poll stations, and it's not centralised, so how many people are they going to be able to arrest and what are they going to charge you with? Menace with a box?
Yeah.
Came equipped with a box with a hole in it. But they aren't worried, Cookie, because it just goes to show. I get 4 or 5 votes? I can't remember. But and the cops were fucking. The guy at the polling station phoned the cops. So.
Yeah, we did pay a deposit, did you? So I mean, you didn't lose anything.
Oh, exactly. I wouldn't be, but no, because that's the thing. Even the SNP gimps that were standing outside the polling station that was sitting chatting to, they were indoctrinated. They're like, why don't you just pay your whatever and participate in the real election? That's the whole point. You get it, bozo. I ain't got the money. I'm a real person, and this is as real as your fucking box. And they're looking at my box, thinking I'm out my box. And they don't understand the box is real, just like my Declaration of Independence is as real as the one in America. And you say that to people and they go, huh? You're like, well, what's different behind it? It's a bit of paper with fucking writing on it, and I say so. So they're men like me, and they didn't even profess to be like some fucking religious leader or some fucking god on this earth or any of that crap, like the fucking Pope, Queen, and Kings and shit. So, I don't know, people need to get out of this hypnosis they've got us under, where we blindly follow the man with the funny coat.
It also gives a tacit approval of the system itself. If you take part in like running for election, you have to pay that fee to even be allowed to run in a major election. You have to actually be nominated by one of the parties that you have to be a member of, and all this kind of shit. Yeah,
you need to participate in the money and banking system that everybody who should be putting their fucking having their own box should be against, and most of us are.
I've seen some guys as well that stand in the street with a box, yeah, and it's about waist height, and they've got 3 little cups on the front, yeah, and they want you to come up and take part in their little game, yeah, as well, and they move the cups around. That's what it's like. That's politics. Are you going to go out and play their Monty game, yeah, their 3-card Monty game? It's just a waste of time. They've all got it fixed.
Just to add this in as well, talking about crafting reality and the misinterpretation of the reality that comes at us via these kind of mediums, whether it be the internet or the TV or whatever. I heard recently, I've heard this a couple of times recently from different people, the attitude of, well, I wouldn't want to talk to somebody in the street about this stuff because they'd think I'm crazy. And it's so, do you not see what you're doing there? You're taking something that the system has implanted into you, i.e. the fear of being ostracized, so that you self-police. Mm-hmm. You're worried that the person you're talking to in the street is going to point at you and go, ha ha ha, conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hatter, ha 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 ha. Why are you carrying this with you, and you're letting it manipulate what you do at a distance, when you were talking last night, Kip, about on the Bemusement show you did last night, and again the BBC was talking about the point of the brown people coming here in boats and all that kind of usual propaganda shit. And I typed in the chat something that sort of at the time when I first did it, it just sort of came to me, and it was kind of one of those, just posting a comment kind of thing. But as I typed it, and the more I thought about it, I thought, this is very true. And I thought of other examples I've heard other people speak about this kind of principle, and basically, Bob Marley's quotes, "Emancipate yourself," rings true for this. But what I typed in was colonization begins in the mind. I think was it Biafra who said something along those lines as well, as that the slave is the one who takes that principle that they've been told that they are a slave to the nth degree. When they invade a country, if they invade a country with military forces and stuff like the old style of colonization, it required them to then keep those forces there to suppress the populace, to occupy the territory by military force. But what they learned in that process of developing the technology of colonization was you get in people's heads and you plant those kind of seeds. I could probably trace this back to Roman times, because the Romans did this kind of stuff. You plant
the Greek plays, mate.
Yeah.
The Normans
you plant those kinds of seeds, and people self-police to such a degree that they I can't think of the right word for it. They not absorb themselves, but they sublimate themselves into your empire, whether they're conscious of what they're doing or not. Those little brain worms get in their head and they get colonized from the inside out.
They forget their own identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They lose their authorship.
The Normans in England, they tried to do that by changing the language, forcing a language change on the people, or trying to, yeah? And a lot of people have done that. They, up to about 5 years ago, they had a law here against teaching people in Catalan in the schools. But, the Catalans, they don't really take much of that kind of shit.
Yeah. They've done similar all over the world, really. A good place to possibly find examples is the situation in Canada, because it's more recent in a historical sense. You're talking like the 60s and 70s and 80s. It's still going on today, really, to a certain degree, but they systematically tried to eradicate the use of the native languages by banning, they'd take the children into an education system or an orphanage or something like that, where they would be punished if they spoke their own language. So they forced them to learn English and to try and kill off their native language.
But there's another universal language now. I mean, when you see these people heading towards the tunnel, these immigrants, and then you see one of them stop, get his phone out and start texting, that's a human being, yeah, just like you or me, just like the people you don't stop to talk to in the street. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people criticise when they see people texting, but to me that's mental activity, and it's a colour. It's one colour. Everybody that uses a phone and texts, black, white, whatever, it's a very universal language when you see somebody doing that.
Well, isn't it? I'm just being pedantic on sort of clarifying the example, but isn't that more like the internet, the technology of the internet? Because whether you're using a phone or a gadget or a desktop computer like I am, we're connecting via this ephemeral structure that we call the internet, the World Wide Web, the telecoms system. Yeah. But
it's about seeing somebody else and thinking, oh, they're like me. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a commonality between us, yeah.
You're talking about destroying culture and stuff there, Cookie. An interesting example of this, and a lot of people don't know it, and you're actually rocking a bit yourself tonight, but see all tartans? There isn't an original tartan out there. They are all just replicas, because at the time, obviously, the Redcoats came up and they went to the Highlanders, about where all the clans were, and they banned the language. So you were forbidden to use the language, and then you were forbidden to wear the clothing, which was the tartan. So for a good, was it 150, 200, or maybe even 250? I think it was more 150, I can't quite remember. Tartan was banned, and it was literally annihilated. So when it was capable of even talking about tartan and that, the tradition had all been completely, because they slaughtered a lot of these people. They didn't run them out of town. They slaughtered them. They killed them. It was ethnic cleansing. So the ones that survived, the real tradition of the real tartans. So when they came back to thinking about tartan again, or reviving tartan, it was all best guesses and shit. So it's original in a sense, dated back to then, but it's not the original clan tartans, because the real clans were annihilated by that point, man.
Does that hold true for the Irish and the Welsh as well? Because I know they use a sort of similar kind of thing like tartan. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, and I might even stand corrected in this. I can't believe this is a whole of my ignorance. But I always thought tartan was more traditionally Scottish, and it bled into the Celtic traditions of Ireland. And I might be completely wrong there.
It's plaid. Think about the way they make it.
Yeah, on the loom.
It's easier to keep count if you're making cloth by putting a different colour in every 10th or every 20th, whatever. Yeah, so that's how they get the plaid.
Yeah, I remember, according to the archaeologists and historians anyway, we could bring that in as well, talking about almost reality and crafted reality and whatever. But the evidence of the Celtic peoples wearing plaid clothing, similar to what I'm wearing now, it might have just been two simple colours, but as Guy was saying, when you're crafting this stuff on a loom, it becomes a simple way of keeping track of how much you're producing and stuff like that, and it also then enables people to self-identify and clan identification and stuff like that. So I think it does trace back a lot further than just the Scotty who moved into Scotland and became Scotland.
You've got the chemistry of colours in there as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Onion skin will be yellow, and then there's a lot of the wool and the things they used to do with it. Apparently, goat's piss was the best thing to fix colours. You get the wool, you dye it with your colour, and then you pour on lots of goat's piss. That will fix the colour, and then you wash it, right? Of course.
That's just so ironic when the goat and the symbolism of the goat and all that kind of stuff, you bring that in as well. It's like, strokey beard.
I think I remember the reason for that is because it should be sheep's, but for some reason, somebody sat there and they tried every different. I mean, they knew there was something about piss that would fix the colour, and so they tried everything: horses, pigs, whatever. I mean, they must have done, yeah. And it goes back to a lot of the old chemistry, alchemy. I mean, it was just experimentation. What worked?
Yeah.
I've just had a thought there about everything you guys are talking about right now. Listen to this one. See if you think there's anything in it. You know how a lot of people look for reasonable explanations of things that are referenced to a bit and biblically and whatnot, right? Now, Gary, you brought up the fact that tartan and plaid and that kind of stuff was done because of numbers and whatnot. It was easy to keep count and stuff, right? So then, well, I've often spoke about pi 3.14 being pi and in the mirror image and that being like the golden ratio and all that kind of shit and being transferred with the people that had the knowledge to see it over the years, right? And we're aware of in the fucking Bible and shit of the golden fleece and the fucking reference to the golden fleece and stuff. Now we all know you can't make a fleece out of gold, and probably just wasn't a nice bit of clothing because it was so. So do you think you could? Well, in fact, it's pretty obvious that you could actually encode numerology into plaid. And now you think about it, into a bit of clothing. So do you think it was maybe a fucking bit of clothing? And I'm just throwing this out here. I've not read anything about this or anything. It just fucking popped into my head. But do you think maybe something the Golden Fleece, if you're trying to rationally explain it, something to do with numerology or something encoded in the fucking strands?
Golden Fleece. Yeah, what it was. There are certain places where you pan for gold. Yeah. I'm just been eating. And what you do, instead of panning for gold, you put sheep skins, whole skins, right across the bottom of the river, and you weigh them down with rocks. And because of the way the sheepskin is much closer, yeah, what happens when the dust and that rolls over the sheepskin, the heaviest dust gets right dug into the sheepskin. So it's like panning for gold. You just leave the sheepskin there. Like a filter. Yeah, it filters everything out and just leaves the gold embedded in the sheepskins. And then you lift the sheepskin out, turn it over something, and beat all the gold out.
That's actually
brilliant, Gary.
That's actually a really good point for me to throw in something I also wanted to talk about, and this is, yeah, it is sort of linked into talking about crafting reality, creating a narrative, almost reality, that kind of stuff, but it's also, yeah, I'll just talk about it. We can get into sort of trying to dissect it a little bit. I don't want to go into it at depth because I guarantee you this will open massive tunnels down in the rabbit warren. If you want to go pursuing it, there is a vast amount of information that stems off of this. But it was the recent news in the mainstream media about Cecil the lion being hunted and killed by a dentist from America who, from what I've said, I haven't researched deeply into the actual story and event itself because I'm dubious as to whether it even really took place, because there are so many indicators in this story that it is not about a genuine event in reality. This is like a gang sign, a insider knowledge sharing of information. You know, the agencies use public media to communicate with each other in such a way, and when I say agencies, that also includes secret societies and whatever, not just governmental agencies, but to communicate information with each other about events and occurrences and stuff like that without the public being aware of what's going on. The public just thinks it's a sad, tragic story about a lion being killed. An insider may see it having a completely different meaning. It's like a encrypted message, yeah. And a couple of things on that note is, one, the Lion of Judah, yeah, which does in a way connect into the stories about the Golden Fleece. The Golden Fleece itself is a metaphor in those stories, but anyway, the Lion of Judah, the fact that it was killed by a dentist. What do dentists do? They remove teeth, yeah. So the teeth of the Lion of Judah has been removed, he's been silenced, all that kind of stuff. And then we can add into it as another sort of correlation that I'm seeing anyway, you know, this is my point of view, the recent announcements of the revealing of that Baphomet statue and the Church of Satan opening its doors legitimately, you know, all this kind of shit. And I see this event going on of them trying to say, like the insiders trying to say to their fellow initiates that we've dealt with a certain problem. A certain person or problem has been dealt with, he has been detoothed, he has been silenced, whatever, yeah. So that, in terms of crafting reality, and that's not even, like I said, massive potential topic with this. That's not even getting into the connections to Cecil Rhodes and Rhodesia and all of the stuff that goes back over the last century or two to do with that whole institution and its connection to Freemasonry and the Masonic Secret Society. All that kind of massive amount of information.
I posted a link on Matty D's video about the Nemean lion being killed by Hercules. It was the first labour of Hercules. The next one will be a Hydra. And Matty D, for some reason, was mentioning a griffin. And like I pointed out to him, if you're gonna produce a griffin, you've got to cut the lion's head off because it needs an eagle's head. And Cecil apparently had his head cut off. Yeah, and there were a couple of other links there as well to lions. The Nemean lion was supposedly killed by an arrow. Yeah, which was Hercules one. Let me see, I've got a thing on it in Wiki here.
One of Hercules' tasks was getting the golden fleece, wasn't it?
No, that was Jason, wasn't it? Or did he have to go do that as well?
Who was the guy with the shield?
Jason. Yeah, I think you're right, mate. Jason. It's
Reason
just too much information sometimes.
The reason I mentioned the thing about the golden fleeces was that they actually do have some gold up in Armenia. And going from the geography of Jason, I would imagine he'd gone across the Black Sea, up one of the rivers off the Black Sea. And then it occurred to me that if it was true, you could dredge for gold at the mouth of that river as it comes into the Black Sea. And there might even be gold there now, today. It would be if he was one of these rich guys that could go out with a boat and test for this sort of thing, that would be quite nice.
Yeah.
But I think it is, to me, that was the main thing I've been taking away from these correlated stories that I'm seeing recently, is how the media is being used to craft a reality for the general public, but the truth is encrypted within those messages, those stories, that information, etc. And this is a common tactic of the establishment and agencies and secret societies and all that shit. If you ain't in their club, they won't be honest with you. They deal in the shadows of smoke and mirrors and misdirection and misinformation. Yeah? And what you're looking at on your TV screen or on your internet screen, whatever, may not be what you first think it is, or what it seems to be, what it pretends to be. It could have a whole different message woven into it completely.
It reminded me a wee bit of, I remember when CNN came on and said ISIS was luring white girls with Nutella and emoticons. It doesn't make any sense or have any ground in anything. So you just went in and it's like on CNN. So people are thinking, oh my god. And then I think that's kind of like a go for, you know what I mean, somebody sitting in Muhammad sitting in Baghdad to go. So when I see, like, cause I seen the fallen angel thing yesterday, and the Baphomet statue and shit, and you're like, well, and there was a pattern here, and it is like, it was like they're throwing up their gang sign worldwide.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of a God knows what, man, because again, you would need to be in the know to know about that shit. But is it like a fucking go sign? You know what I mean? Is it like,
it could be, mate. Yeah. I felt that the story about the lion was, like I said, it's almost like letting your fellow brothers know that a problem has been dealt with. You know, something's been dealt with, it's been put down or whatever. But the Baphomet story is definitely externalizing of the hierarchy, a revealing of an acceptance of extremes, you know, that kind of stuff, like the revealing of paedophilia. It's normalization, the Hegelian process of making people just accept it and move on. And then it becomes part and parcel of society's norms, yeah, normalised.
Has everybody seen the news about those guys in America being killed?
With ones?
Yeah, how many hundreds of thousands of that one?
Doctors, what happens?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, if you've got the cancer or a virus, a lot of cancers and viruses, they produce this chemical called Nargilese. Yeah, and it's very specific. What it does, it runs down the immune system and it knocks out a part of the immune system. Now, if they test somebody for this Nargilese, they think, oh fuck. So if they find this Nargilese in a test, they instantly think, right, and they start looking for what caused it. But it didn't occur to them that the pharmaceutical companies might actually put in Nargilés itself into vaccines, because it's such a little toxic poison, and if anybody finds it, they'll think it's come from somewhere else. Anyway, about 8 doctors who know of a natural cure for this sort of thing to clear it up, they've been killed in Florida, along with a few others. It was a Professor Doom video, and it
Big
was
pharma
very
hit.
good. Huh?
A big pharma hit.
Yeah, it looks like these people have actually been killed by big pharmaceutical companies, and it just occurred to me how difficult it would be for these guys to get protection, even from militia.
Imagine you turned up at the cops, and when GlaxoSmithKline or whatever one of them wants to kill me, cops will be like, ah, go away, and then they all end up dead.
But have you considered the possibility that it could be a reverse psychology attempt to make people go out and look for these alternative cures?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty convinced they put nasty things in vaccines.
Oh,
But
yeah,
when
I agree with you on that.
When they describe this kicking out the immune system as soon as you've taken some Nargilés, you know, that rang a bell for me, because mercury is a very slow-acting poison.
Oh.
So I don't doubt that autism can come from mercury, but yeah, a lot of people have been complaining when they get a vaccine, they get knocked off their feet straight away. Yeah. So,
Yeah, well, now they're going to be putting it directly into food if they can. That was a little video I watched from Experimental Vaccines channel. He puts out a lot of good stuff, so go and check it out. But you know, this is something that I think for a lot of us, being cynical, for myself anyway, being cynical, you knew this was going to be coming, yeah. With the advance of GMO and the dominance of GMO industry, such that now I mean, this is relevant to the USA at the moment, what's been going on in the USA rather than here in the UK. But they're now putting in a ban against labelling that there's GMO in there. This ties into all this TTIP and all this kind of corporate alliances that are being ratified across the globe. And, you know, if people want example or evidence of how you're now living within a corporatized global structure, that's it. All that stuff to do with that kind of, you know, the TTIP, and then you can get into Agenda 21 and whatever. But they will eventually, their aim is to have such control over the food production that all this kind of stuff, whether it be vaccines or whether it be fluoride or some other chemical or chemical effluent to mess with your biology, to mess with your mind, or they want it straight in there so that you can't get away from it. Yeah. You know, that sounds like doom, tonight, doom.
Where exactly was it that the GMO labelling was banned? Because there are certain states where they do say you have to do it, and they argue that it's a statewide thing.
They're talking the TTPPP thing is going to knock it out.
Yeah. It was a story from within the last couple of weeks, mate. I don't exactly remember whether it was applicable only to one state, but it is the fact that it's tied into that corporate alliance structure, where as part of and you know, this is basing it on information that's coming from leaked sources and stuff like that, which in and of themselves could be a manipulation. But according to some leaked sources, those alliance contracts include things such as a get-out clause for the corporation. So basically, if their product causes you harm or damage, you can't sue them. Yeah, so the GMO kind of thing all goes along with that. If 20 years down the line, it turns out that GMO is something similar to what happened with thalidomide, and all of a sudden loads of people are having, you know, malformed or mutated births and stuff like that, or problems, the corporations that instigated it all will not be held responsible. Yeah.
Then do you know who else gets that as well, Cookie? Talking about vaccines and big pharma, they get what's the word it's called? They get immunity for liability. So if any of their products fuck up, do you know who else gets it? Microsoft and that's all ties in. Microsoft and software gets it. That's why when you buy shit, take it home and plug it in, and if it doesn't work, you've got no recourse because of that user agreement. Read the user agreement, man. You sign everything away, and then they're trying to fucking force. Oh, here, people, Microsoft, don't be evil. Have Windows 10 free. Do you know what I've just noticed? My Windows 10 icon's disappeared. It's making me nervous. I better not have accepted it. I don't want Windows.
The Illuminati are in your system, mate.
Those fucking Windows 10 on me. Just get my Hedron Windows 7 and you skip fucking 9 and jump to 10. Give me a...
That in and of itself is a massive conspiracy theory. You know, why is it that they've skipped number 9 and stuff?
Yeah. Listen, don't worry, it's all fucking, it just says exactly what on the tin, 57 varieties, nothing to see here.
Yeah. And when you also take into consideration that a lot of our military structures, both in the USA and here in the UK and across a lot of the Western nations, the NATO countries, the UN countries, whatever, are utilising Microsoft-based systems in military hardware, what happens 10 years down the line when, you know, one of these bits of hardware just suddenly goes off by itself because of a fault in the software, and the Microsoft just goes, oh, well, you can't sue us. Sorry your city blew up, you know, tough.
That's a good point, Cookie, because I think technically they would still be have immunity for liability.
Yeah.
Talking about Chunky, it reminded me of that, this is right off topic, that woman that he interviewed about a year ago, the one who stood up to McDonald's, do you remember? She used to stand outside the stores, McDonald's, saying the food was a lot of shite, yeah? And McDonald's sued her. But now they're putting up posters in their windows saying our food will give you cancer. So she got a case now. Can she come back and appeal the case against her? Yeah?
Well, it's only in California, though, isn't it? I think. Again, it's that thing about different states can have different legislation.
A lawyer would argue, even though the food may give you cancer, it doesn't technically make it shite.
Well, I put up a little video clip on my channel ages ago. That's this is, you know, referencing back again to the Monty Python crew. They did a film years ago called Yellowbeard, which is not one of their most popular films. Like Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky is again another brilliant masterpiece, but it's not one of their most popular films. But in Yellowbeard, there's this one brilliant little scene where the hero is sort of walking through the marketplace, and this little urchin girl comes up to him and says, "Tuppence for a lump of shit, sir." And he goes, "You what?" He says, "Tuppence for a lump of shit." And he goes, "I don't want that." So she throws a turd in his face. And this is, you know, they get away with this when they sell you crap, but because you agree to the terms and conditions, it's your own fault when you're eating it. You go, "Oh, this is the turd." And it's like, well, yeah, you agreed to buy a turd, so you got a turd, you know. That, again, I see that as that normalization of the abuser. The abuser wants you to be the gimp and accept that it's your fault that you're being punished. Right? So they say to you, "Oh, terms and conditions says, you know, you can't blame us for selling you a turd. You chose to buy it and eat it. It's your own fault." Which is, you know, we could talk about the karmic expulsion or the karmic misdirection that a lot of the dark arts use to self-justify them what they do. You know, but that again is venturing down into deep rabbit holes. So.
Karma comes from the bounce back of the universe. Basically, you hit a wall, that punch, it goes out, reverberates, and comes back. So how these people carry on a whole life and think that somehow they're going to escape the bounce back? This is what intrigues me. And when the cases come out in Parliament and some of these paedophiles fall, to me that is it. That's they put out a wave of abuse, nastiness, violence, and it's come back on them. But most of them act like that wave will never come back. Yeah, I mean, like they're on a cosmic trampoline. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
stamp on the thing, it's gonna kick you back off.
doesn't it just demonstrate a limited thinking and egotistical? This is common for the kind of human egocentric way of looking at reality and your part within it, in the same way that people used to think the earth was the center of the universe and all that kind of stuff. They're having the problem, I feel, my opinion, that they have a very short perspective scale, because in the long run, if energy cannot be destroyed, it only ever is transformed from one form to another. Their karma can wait for the entirety of eternity, but it will eventually come back round to them. So they might think, they might even experience a life where they avoid all this responsibility, but it's going to come back to them eventually.
And
It's like traveling through time to the far distant future to sexually abuse one of your own future children, however many generations removed. Their thinking is such short scale, so turned in on themselves, that they cannot conceive of that potentiality of eventually they're going to reach that point where they get that rebound effect coming at them.
They've simplified the understanding. I mean, I think everybody understands the concept of karma the same way everybody understands evolution. But they have just simplified karma into something that it comes back at you in the form of the angry mob. So we just get police to keep them off. Or a foreign country. Oh, well, we have an Illuminati to deal with that. And now it won't come back on them. Well, it can't come back to the spiritual, because they do everything they can to avoid recognizing the spiritual. So, yeah.
It's definitely been co-opted and malformed, right? Yeah. In the same way as like the secret, the principle of reflection and stuff like that. It has been commodified and simplified, turned into a infantilized cartoon version that is comprehensible. And please, people listening to me saying this, I'm not saying that you're dumb or anything like that, but it's compartmentalized and infantilized to be comprehensible to the ability of the brains of the people that they breed. If you're breeding a populace of 12-year-old people, in a sense of mentality, people are stuck in that very juvenile mentality, then you can't give them very expansive concepts to deal with. You have to give them really simplified things, yeah? So, yeah, a lot of that stuff, again, it's a really big topic, isn't it? Talking about how a lot of very well-known ancient knowledge, and I say well-known because it's been kept alive over the millennium in various ways, including by secret societies such as the Freemasons and the Pythagoreans and whatever else. But yeah, it's simplified and given out to the masses in such a way that it's just become like a poison pill, because it's been so malformed. It doesn't do what it was originally doing. It does some kind of mutated thing. It's detrimental rather than beneficial.
We started off talking about how the mainstream media are pushing their agenda and they have their storylines, and it's, as you say, they have their own version of karma built into the storylines they're telling. A lord snorts coke off a prostitute, he has to resign.
Yeah.
Prime Minister covers up a paedophile ring. Well, next year he'll probably cover up another one. I mean, how do they take that karma, that understand? How do they take that out from applying to themselves, applying to their own behaviour towards Libya, Syria, and these others. You know, this is what I'm.
They're
These are small steps people could take, and they'd understand a lot. Yeah.
the only way I could see or say it is they're under a delusion that they can offset that karmic payload. You know, in the same way as they talk about carbon offsetting, there are principles within, I call it the dark arts, you know, because again, that's just a massive topic in and of itself. But the principles that through the use of a fetish or by transferring that cost onto another, which is why you got things like, you know, the principles of sacrifice and stuff like that. You pass on that cost into the sacrifice and then give the sacrifice back into the energy to fulfill that cost requirement. They, I feel, are under this massive delusion, and this has been built upon and propagated by these different agents that work in that kind of shadow work, that it is possible to offset these kind of responsibilities and payload comebacks. You know, reality, I feel, is absolutely not. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I saw it. What was it? I've been reading the Great Conspiracy. No, A Proof of Conspiracy by a guy called Robison.
Yeah.
1780, and this tells you how the whole Knights Templar, coming from Scotland, was all a big lie made up by the Pretender, who was based in Paris. And it's everything by Weishaupt, why he started the Illuminati. Excellent book. The guy who wrote it was a Mason who'd only knew 3-level Masonry, and he knew it as a good organisation. But the things is Weishaupt. Weishaupt was getting up to so much mischief, he got thrown out of Munich, and he had to go and seek the protection of the Duke of Gotha, Saxe-Gotha.
Saxe-Coburg-Gotha.
Yeah, that's who he went to for protection, but his organisation just grew and grew, and their ultimate aim was the happiness of all men on earth, and you can do anything to reach that goal. I mean, this is taken from the Jesuits. And it's a wonderful little piece of history. Yeah, it really, you can see the way they they invented different degrees, and in one degree you become Christian, and then you become an atheist scientist, and then you can become a Muslim, and so by the time you reach the top, you've got nothing. You don't believe in anything anymore but the organisation itself. It's I'll give a link to the book. Yeah, it's really worth reading.
I've got it, mate. Yeah, it's one of the ones I've got on PDF file somewhere, buried in my Room 101 folder. I've got a folder that I call Room 101, where I've got a collection of stuff like that, of PDF files and documents and whatever.
Do you think it's genuine?
Yes, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too.
It is take into consideration as well, when thinking about how things are happening at the moment, crafting reality, the Weishaupt's Illuminati, I feel, again, I'm expressing my opinion, you know, this is not factual evidence, folks, but my opinion is Weishaupt's Illuminati, it was that period of time example of the plausible deniability facade with the scapegoats required to divert public outrage and attention from the true secret society in the background. So he was used as a patsy. He was persuaded and helped and set up and handled in such a way that they ended up with this little group that they could direct all the public's revealing knowledge and angst against that group, and then they just cut its head off and they go, there you go, folks, it's all dealt with, you don't need to worry about it anymore, move on. Yeah.
And remember as well, Weishaupt was he was not only was he a Jesuit, but he was what was it he studied canonical law as well. So he was like a fucking Jesuit lawyer, right? And then he went
theologian.
And then he went and set up the Illuminati, right? So you can think about that, him being a triple, double, quadruple fucking agent. You know what I mean? Because if you look at the way that the myth of the Illuminati still to this day is propagated, a myth, and ultimately what it does is it gets people chasing fucking bogeymen and demonising and like over demonising Masons when there's a broader group to be fucking demonising. Do you know what I mean? They just go Mason, 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 and you're like, aye, but look at these lot over here as well, Mason, 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 and it's easy. You can see how it's been used, the myth and stuff. And Weishaupt, man, very questionable character, aye.
Oh yeah, the letters from him. I mean, he's talking about morality all the time, and then he gets his sister-in-law pregnant. And so he goes to another Illuminati and he's asking her for a secret potion that will kill the baby and give her an abortion. And he's saying, oh, I've got to kill the baby, or the whole organisation is going to be threatened. I mean, just completely without morals, these guys, yeah? But what struck me was their modus operandi, the way they take the people they're training up, yeah? And they first tell them one thing, then another, and the eventual outcome is that they only want them to be loyal, basically, to their leaders, to the organisation. So they slowly give up every religious idea they've got. And the assassins did the same thing.
Well, I think the majority of them want that peer group acceptance, that kind of being part of the club. And then you've got the handful of them that will be the ones that, possibly psychopathic, are pursuing the power that they can see the potential of by getting themselves into a position of authority within that structure. So they sort of play the game until they climb the ladder. You know, I'm thinking of people like Crowley and stuff like that.
Here's another conspiracy on top of this, right? Just to not to clear the waters, but to muddy it a wee bit further. If you go and look, you need to check this out, man. Shit, who was this about? If you go and look at the Albert Pike, I'm going to call it bullcrap, right? And people go, oh, Albert Pike's real, right? That's not what I'm disputing. I'm talking about Albert Pike's prediction of 3 world wars. Oh, but he mentioned Nazis when Nazis didn't exist back then. But he's not going to check this out again. But the Albert Pike myth is as best as I can tell, and the Albert Pike myth about the 3 world wars. And I'm not saying that when it was wrote it became scarily accurate, but I'm saying the relating that story to Albert Pike is bullcrap in my best opinion. And the person, and he was a guy in Victorian London who was wanting to make a fast buck off of fucking all these myths and legends and stuff. So he went away to South America and came back after speaking to a Jesuit priest with these books and these things, and reincarnated the Illuminati, and that's where the Illuminati myth re-exploded. And I can't even remember putting a date on it. Victoria, London, sometime. But I've went into that before. But go and check. I've got videos on it, man. Albert Pike, where I go into the whole thing. But if you trace it back, it comes to for a Jesuit sitting and like what are Jesuits' MOs as well, right? Jesuit MOs are to blend in and do you know what I mean? Become the other and destroy from within, but become the other, do everything the other does. So if to join that other you have to go and kill a Jesuit, that Jesuit will go and kill a Jesuit to be accepted in that brotherhood. You know what I mean? That is the mentality of these, that's how extreme these, and this isn't fucking pie in the sky, this is the mentality these people are taught. So they'll go and murder their own, ultimately, so this isn't any short-term game. So you could think of Weishaupt as being, was he a genuine Mason? Was he a fucking Mason? You know, I mean, there's so many angles you need to put.
I tell you what interests me is that, you know, it's taken 30 years or so for me to stand on my own feet. But imagine going to a foreign city and having the handshake with a complete stranger, and then knowing that you can trust that stranger, and then walking down the road and seeing symbols on buildings everywhere, and knowing that you're a part of that group. I mean, that must be really, really, yeah.
The Global Secret Society.
Yeah, it must be a
But
really difficult thing to resist that.
I do think it's a good point, and to sort of go back to the topic originally in a way, but talking about how, and I mean, I think people have to be honest with themselves. That's really the first thing you've got to start learning to do if you're interested in these kind of topics. Yeah. And the reason I say that is in that respect of, well, all of us are brought up, again, a grand generalization, the majority of us are brought up within this system, which means we're all subject to these little programs and memes and, like I called them earlier, brain worms that they implant on you to misdirect you. Yeah. And I mean, we've just been referencing some of the classic information about the Illuminati and the Masons and stuff like that. Years ago, I started to realize that there's a lot more to this than just one secret society, just one nation, just one group of people and stuff like that. And you start to widen your areas of interest, and you will, I feel, I did, you'll start to realize that it's not just one group that you can easily target. So when you're going through that process of trying to sift what is reality and what is the almost reality that they want you to believe, don't believe that kind of bullshit facade of, hey, look, we're the bad guys, we're the bad guys, we're the bad guys, and you miss everything else that's going on. Yeah. So, I just thought it's something that has to be reiterated. It has to be restated again and again and again, because different people come into view and look at this kind of information. But it's something that is, when you're interested in these kind of topics, you need grounding, because without some grounding, you are just going to get blown along in the wind, believing whatever fart comes along to tickle your taste buds. So in that respect, I can't think of how else to word it, but try and look a bit further than just immediately accepting the first scapegoat that is presented to you. The Masons make a very good scapegoat. I'm not saying they are free of blame. I'm not justifying who they are or what they do or anything else, not at all. But don't get stuck on that point of, I figured out that the Masons do this, therefore the Masons do everything. It's like the recent crap about NASA lies and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, yeah, they do. They're politically manipulated. They put out deliberately crafted narratives. Yes, they do. That doesn't mean that the world is flat. Stuff like that. That's the territory you're in when you start looking at these kind of topics. So
it's quite possible the Masons are strongest in the local communities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Around
they built a lot of them. So yeah.
Yeah. Local bank manager, head of police, etc.
Well, see, funnily you say that. I mean, it's very easily done. Go and look at a list of Masonic lodges, and just look at the addresses of them. Main Street, Castle Street. I mean, it's
Temple Row in Birmingham. It's on Temple Row.
Up in St Andrews, their lodge, right, is literally built on the town hall. I mean, the town hall's here, big grand building. Sorry, not just the town hall, right? You've got the town hall, you've got the Office of Birth, Deaths and Marriages, a couple other official buildings in this real grand big building, and then all the door fronts to all those different departments, and then you've got this alleyway and other buildings here. In the alleyway, there's a gate with a wee lamp outside it with the fucking compass and set square, and just this wee winding alleyway you can't even see the bottom of, man. It's get creepy.
I'll tell you something. Has anybody ever heard that there's an old Victorian slang term that if I was talking a lot of crap, you might turn around and say, that sounds like a lot of gammon. But that used to be the one of the passwords for a Freemason lodge. Yeah, they'd give their knock, and then it'd say gammon. Yeah, and you can just imagine all the cab drivers around London. Yeah, and one of them talked down and said, what was he up to? What was he talking about? He said, oh, I just said a lot of old gammon. Yeah, but it actually became a word meaning, somebody who's talking a lot of rubbish. Gammon, and that's one of their passwords. But it also occurred to me that Common Core, where they pick people out of the police force and the education system, and they particularly go in there looking for the bad types. Well, the Masons, Weishaupt, that was his modus operandi, to go into the Masons and look for the worst people and promote them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's exactly what Common Core do.
And as a contemporary reference, because as I do, I like to try and reference or correlate how stuff from historical perspective can help you realize what's going on around you today now. Yeah, but on that kind of crafted reality and the kind of limited hangout effect of they set this institution up, and they'll have people in. I'll use the example of the Masons because it just makes it easier to explain what I'm trying to say. They set up a lodge, they have people from the local community in the lodge. Some of those members, those brothers, will be in important roles within your local community, such as police chief and stuff like that, yeah? But in that process of having those people in that little closeted, controlled hierarchy, they can find and handle the other people that they're looking for, the ones that are psychopathic or whatever else and are willing to do anything to get their hands on the power or to be accepted or whatever. And recently I've been using the word fulminate a lot, and I know I've been misusing it because it's not really what it means, but I've been trying to think of another word that explains that principle of stuff bubbling up to the top. Yeah, they set up that little institution, they let the people who are happily just there for the kind of community aspect and stuff, they let them do their thing. Yeah, they help run the whole community and stuff like that, but what they're actually after is that bubbling up effect of this guy keeps asking me about hidden knowledge, this guy keeps asking me about, well, is there anything you want me to do for you, is there anything you want me to do for you, brother? Let's give him something to do and see how far he's willing to go. Mafias work in the same principle. The government, the politics work in the same principle. They are keeping a careful eye on who they can manipulate in that kind of fashion.
Well, Ricky, do you know what I was going to say? Oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say there, man.
Did anybody see the news about MH17 and an investigation?
The UN investigation that they were trying to do, yeah.
Is that because Putin was talking to the Dutch? So the United Nations have gone in to try and quieten it down?
Possibly. But Russia's got a veto vote, so it ain't going to happen.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Cookie. I was going to say something controversial. If you go and actually look at the history of the Masons and like how they've transformed as an organisation over the centuries, let's face it, a good Mason will argue back millennium. Do you know what I mean? They say they're the most ancient guild. But anyway, for me it was, and this is going to come out bad, right? And I'm going to get criticism. But for me, there was not only a need for it, but it served a genuine, real, good, honourable purpose when it was confronted with the magic, myths, legends, bullshit, might, and corruption and monopoly of knowledge of the church. It was only during the transformation from, you could argue, two steps, when it transformed from being temporary lodges, when it first started becoming permanent lodges, when it first started becoming shit, I'm racking my brain cells here. When they started becoming speculative instead of operative Freemasons as well, there was a time to be a Freemason, you actually had to be a fucking Mason, do you know what I mean? And then over time, it became operative and speculative. So you could argue that was the start of the fall of the Honourable Guild. I would argue, man, go and look at the history, man. There was a necessity for the secrecy. Wasn't there for no reason. They had to keep the fucking shit they were talking about secret, otherwise they would be burnt at the stake for the fucking church. You know what I mean? So you need to actually go and look at the history of these people and where they came from. And
I do know what you're saying, mate. I think I get where you're coming from anyway, put it that way. But
it started central, because even when there was permanent lodges, they would still...
I'll ask you to consider this, how much involvement that society has had with the creation and propagation of those very churches. Again, that Hegelian process of the thesis and antithesis, the opposition, yeah? The church back then was the everything is done by God point of view, yeah? And what you're suggesting is the other orders, the Masonic orders or whatever, were carrying or created as a vehicle to carry and protect true scientific knowledge. But that's the two opposites that you need, yeah? And they've had just as much involvement in the manipulation of information, the control of information from the public in such a way that it causes problems, it causes detrimental things to occur in your society. My attitude being that if you could go all the way back in time, and instead of allowing these people to closet and control this information, you taught it to everybody who was born in your society, then you wouldn't have a lot of the problems that we have now, would you?
Well, you don't need to. You don't need to teach it to people. It's there in the building. That was what the Masons were trying to do. Yeah?
Well, Cookie, that's why I said there was a time. There was a time because there was a point when the church was so powerful that nobody could stand up to it. So to have a counterpoint of view to the church and still be able to walk around and not get burnt at the stake, you had to speak in secret. So the secret was born out of necessity. I agree with you. Once you and this is what I was going to say. Just like everything else.
Oh look, Cecil on the TV behind you. Sorry, mate. But that's ironic timing.
Like communism, if you were to take communism as a concept and put it into practice and theory, it would be great at the beginning because, yes, let's work together, build a better society and all that. But then when you get to that knowledge where you get over that cusp when the people at the top, and again, even earlier on when I was talking about all these isms and shit, same concept. When you get to a point at the top and the shit concentrates at the top, they begin to get concentrated shit and everything turns to mush. And that's why everything, if you want to build something, even call it a system, you need to take the concept of corruption of man into it. And that's why Freemasonry became corrupt. Because I said it started out as an honourable thing and did become corrupt because I agree, because they had a monopoly, that they fought against the monopoly and then became a monopoly themselves. Like everybody, they start off as a good cause and then they turn to shit because they get power. So you can't subscribe to a group having a revolution and grabbing power, because as soon as that happens, they start to turn to shite. So I agree, man.
As a part of that consideration, think about who helped start all the revolutions.
Masons. Well, that's that point.
You see what I mean about the opposition, and this has been a Hegelian process of them pushing us towards this virtual Babylon, this new Babylon. As well, I'd point out that if you trace the roots back far enough, you eventually get back to think. I'm sure you did a video about it. It's about the Pythagoreans, yeah. And Pythagoras far outdates the churches, mate. So this sacred, what I'll call it sacred knowledge, you know, this kind of knowledge about sacred geometry and stuff like that, is what was part of that initial creation of the Masons. Of you need to be given a certain kind of education of information that will enable you to be able to build this building in the first place, yeah? Do you see what I mean? All the building, the masonry part of what was part of the craft is to do with the use of mathematics and geometry to affect the physical world, to take something that is ephemeral, metaphysical, part of the mind, and put it into something solid. Yeah, and the skill of these masons was being able to utilize that understanding and ability to use mathematics and geometry to enable them to pile stones up in a much more a bigger fashion, and a more grand fashion, a more decorative fashion, whatever, the skill of the mason in making buildings. And then you add into it how a lot of those buildings include sacred geometrical energy potentials. I'll call it that. People know I know you know what I mean by that. Yeah, that to me means this stuff goes far back before the power of the church to be able to condemn you as a heretic and burn you at a stake because you know about pi. Yeah.
No. The true knowledge was how to work stone. Because you look at the cathedrals, they suddenly came up with things called flying buttresses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I tell you something. You take a churchman into a quarry, and you give him a mallet. Yeah, you give him a mallet and a chisel. Yeah, and he's going to chisel that piece of stone, and he knows from how that stone breaks how to set up a pillar and how thick it needs to be. And that was a master mason who would know things like that. And no priest has got a first clue about that kind of thing. They actually needed the masons to build their churches for them, or they'd fall down. Yeah. And in the 12th century, they modelled flying buttresses, the two curbs that hold the walls up on the outside. They modelled them probably on something like a shoulder bone or a collarbone. Probably from the bones of an animal. Yeah, somebody got the idea of looking at an animal's skeleton and said, "Hey, we could hold a wall up like that. If it can hold up somebody's body, it can hold up a wall." So yeah, that stuff priests they needed that. But if you want to look for the secrets, you'll find in churches. I doubt if you'll ever find anything in a church actually built into the structure to resemble Mary. Because that came from the Babylon church. Yeah? Mm-hmm. If you read the two Babylons, that describes all the elements of Babylonian religion that was slowly brought into the Catholic religion, maybe that was the real secret knowledge that they wouldn't build into their churches. Yeah?
I get it. All the ancient cathedrals, so we know for the middle, it came out the Middle Ages. They were all built by the Masons when the church didn't like the Masons, and vice versa.
Well, before we go any further, can I say hello to Lowlands Peter? And it's coming up 20 to the hour, so if we wind it up, you can give Kip at least a bit of time to be able to get himself set up for his show in a bit.
I was going to say, everybody that's watching, I stuck the link in to the link to the YouTube and stuff, so if you fancy getting the news at 10 o'clock in about 15 minutes, jump over there. And thanks for hosting this, Cookie. It's been fun, man.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Yo.
Oh, you got the Nutella out again, right?
Yeah, man. Still, I should change. Should look something else up.
It's a lady.
Okay.
Works. Peter, the second you put that up, you got a girlfriend, man.
Yeah, she's still here, so. Yeah.
Exactly, don't get the Nutella down.
It's my lucky charm. It's my lucky charm now, so yeah.
You don't want to find out if the Nutella finishes.
Is there anything in particular you want to say? This is saying to everybody in the room. Is there anything particular you want to talk about? And if it connects to the original topic of almost reality, then please do so. But whatever, if there's anything else you want to add in.
Almost reality. Catch the news in 15 minutes. Speed is almost reality.
Yeah, the BBC News is definitely an almost reality.
And listen, guys, I'll let you wrap up, man, because that'll just give me a wee 5-10 minutes to scratch my balls in between. If you're not going to your beds, mate, feel free to join us at 10:30 after the news is finished, man. And if you as well, Gary, and you as well, Peter, if if your missus has let you off the chain for a
Yeah.
half. Right, guys. Thanks again, Cookie. I'll speak to you all later, guys.
Okay,
See you later.
Kip, thank you. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you on your show in a bit. I'll certainly be in the chat room. I'll see how much energy I've got for joining in the actual hangout as well itself afterwards. I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat room. I'm sorry, folks, I haven't kept up with the chat. If you listen to me do these things before, I'm not very good at the multitasking of being able to read all the conversations as well as having a conversation in the room. So apologies, but hello to everybody. Who haven't I mentioned? Universal Brother, hello. Citrola lot. Bright 77, I'm sure I've mentioned most of you before. Rebecca, hello. Safety Man. Carly Man. Yeah, I think that's, well, I can only scroll back so far because YouTube's doing its usual and cutting the text off it. Experimental vaccines, hello mate. And the fat ugly liquid blunt bitch. It's that fat ugly liquid blunt bitch again. Yeah, okay, I'll leave it at that. I can't scroll back any further. Never mind. So, we sort of, in my fashion, because I've been hosting it, so I've been deliberately prodding people in certain directions. Or at least sort of like trying to hold a light up in certain directions. But thank you. Thanks to everybody in the chat room for chatting with each other as well as sort of talking to us as well. You know, people do read the chat. So don't think you're being ignored, and not at all. It's just that I find it difficult to follow the actual conversations that you're having amongst yourselves. I'm just happy that you're there having those conversations and sharing information and stuff with each other. That is the main point as far as I'm concerned.
A relevant comment on the chat will get a feedback.
Yeah, usually, yeah. As long as one of us notices it and passes it on, yeah. Definitely. I can't think of much else to say apart from don't take everything at face value. All that glitters is not gold. Yeah. Think a little more about it before you jump over that fence. Put it that way. It doesn't mean there is no reality. I'm certainly not trying to suggest that everything is fake or that everything you've ever been told or heard is a lie, all that usual kind of misdirection. But there is an immense amount of the media that you are subjected to day in, day out, whether it be via the internet or the television or a newspaper or whatever, that is deliberately crafted to manipulate your thinking, to push you and nudge you and control you to go in certain directions, to steer the herd. Is a lot of what these people rely on, because there's not enough of them to actually physically come out and control you. So instead, they mess with your mind and do it via mental manipulation. So emancipate yourself from mental slavery. It's always the best quote, I think. Anything else you want to say, Peter or Gary?
No, I think you said it well. Media is created, so it's all came out of the head of somebody's idea, gone to paper or gone to movie, gone to whatever. So yep, it's all created. Live events hardly happen anymore, and live television really doesn't exist. There's so much second delay in every live cast we have these days. So
yeah,
everything we see, they can pull on switches and control. So I don't know.
Fade to black. Yeah.
Yeah, fade to black. Yeah. Got the commercial.
Insert the Ebola green screen here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I posted a video on Google Plus the other day from it's a school of Gurdjieff, and they've got lots of different videos up. And there's this guy saying that whatever the internet does, even if it's spying on everybody, it doesn't matter as long as it's intelligent life going on. Yeah, as long as people are still able to participate in some kind of intelligent activity. It's when they start banning intelligent activity that you've got to worry. But they've got to worry because the longer it goes on, intelligent activity, the more difficult it will be to stop it.
Yeah,
so
that's
all
what
they can do is control it.
That's what I think. I feel is what people are meaning when they refer to like the awakening and stuff like that. It's not necessarily something magical. It may not even be spiritual for most people in any way at all, but it is that process of an increasing awareness and an increasing ability to communicate with each other and share information such that you're starting to see through the lie. The lie is revealing itself by the fact that you can all turn to each other and go, "Did you see that? Did you just say that? What was that? Was that a rabbit? Was it really a rabbit? No, it wasn't a rabbit. It was blah, 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 blah." And on it goes. It's an unstoppable thing now that it's started.
Yeah, it's a spiritual forest fire.
I agree, mate. But I know for a lot of people out there that don't like or they're not comfortable with the concepts of spirituality or whatever, but I do agree, mate. Yeah, that's my attitude to it.
It's a forest fire. I've got the same problem with my teeth. It's a forest fire of consciousness. Yeah,
Yep.
and it's breaking out everywhere. And it's like a fire. You can't put consciousness out, but it doesn't destroy.
Yeah. That's a good place for us to wrap it up, and it'll give that'll give
Phoenix
people
from the flames, like, right?
yeah, feeding the Promethean fire. Steve Tegoose put a good little, I say little, it was about an hour long. You know, I know for a lot of people they have a difficulty with attention span for anything more than 5 minutes. But if you got the time, it's a nice video to watch to talk about those kind of concepts of thinking. I'll just put it that way. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good place to leave it. Gives people 10 minutes to go and do something before the bemusement starts on Kip's new channel. It's Kip's Clips 2.0, isn't it? Try saying that with no teeth. But yeah, thanks,
10 times fast.
Thanks again to everyone in the chat room.
Yeah, sorry I joined in so late.
No, it's all right, mate. I sent the invites out. They were there, when and if you were able to come in. So yeah, that's cool. We'll do it again at some point, and I know I'll be ranting at people again at some point. So take care, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
As Mr. Safety Man said, it's not M17, it's M370. They've found a piece of it.
Oh, yeah? Right, okay.
Okay.
All right, cat cheese.
Cat cheese.
Hang on, click the button.